learners, today we're going to take a look at decimal addition and subtraction. The key to decimal addition and subtraction is lining up your decimals. If you line up your decimals, then your place values should be lined up as well. If you're not able to print the worksheets that I'm going over, no problem. My suggestion would be to get a piece of lined paper, turn your paper on its side, and then you can line up the place values in each of those columns to help keep track of what you're combining. This is even more important when you have more numbers and bigger numbers that are happening. With addition, remember if you have 10 of something, you can regroup it to one of the next thing. Now, 100 is the same as 10 tens. 110 is the same as 10 ones. 1 is the same as 10 tens. So whenever I have 10 of something, it lets me regroup to the next thing. If I have 10 100ths, that's the same as having 1/10 if you simplify it. If I have 10 1000ths, that's the same as having 100th if you simplify it. If you need to borrow, you can take one of a larger item to give you 10 of another item. So this helps us for both addition and subtraction. When I'm subtracting, if I don't have enough of something, I can regroup or borrow from the place value to the left to give me more of what I need. So say that I don't have enough tenths, I can take 1 1. 1 1 is the same as 10 tenths, and that regroup allows me to subtract to solve my problem. So decimal addition and subtraction is a little bit tricky. Go ahead, give it a try, and then we'll come back together after you do those first two problems.
Please try problems 1 and 2. In this section, we're going to review decimal addition and subtraction. In part 1, we have one addition problem and one subtraction problem. So here is our addition problem. Now the key to adding and subtracting decimals is to line up the decimals. Noticing that our decimals are lined up here, and by lining up the decimals, my ones are lined up, my tens are lined up, my tenths are lined up, and that helps me to make sure I'm combining similar things. 8 tenths and 0 tenths is 8 tenths. I have my decimal. 2 ones and 4 ones is 6 ones. And 1/10 and 0 tenths is going to be 1/10. So the answer is 16 and 8 tenths. In problem number 2, you're asked to simplify 28 and 44 hundredths minus 5 tenths. So we are subtracting to make it as simple as possible. We're just going to go ahead and subtract. I line up my decimal, so my tens are lined up, my ones are lined up, my tenths are lined up, and my hundredths are lined up. I can go ahead and subtract. 4 hundredths minus 0 hundredths is 4 hundredths. I go to subtract 4 tenths, and from that 5 tenths, but I don't have enough. So what I'm going to do is go over to the ones. I had 8 ones. I'm going to make that 7 ones, and I'm going to take that 1 1, and that's going to give me 10 tenths, which I can add to the 4 tenths that's there. So now 14 tenths minus 5 tenths is 9 tenths. Make sure I have my decimal. 7 ones minus 0 ones is 7, and 2 tens minus no tens is 2 tens. So my answer is 27 and 94 hundredths. Please pause your video and try problems 3 and 4. In part 2, question number 3, you're asked to solve 89 hundredths plus 3 thousandths. Now, at first this looks pretty tricky because in this add-in we have 2 digits after the decimal, but in this addend we have 3 digits after the decimal. As long as you line up your decimals, everything will line up really nice and you should be able to solve. Now, if you are at home and you don't have this printout, you can take a lined piece of paper and turn it on its side and use that to give you some nice columns. All right, now I have 0 ones and 0 ones. I have my tenths lined up, my hundredths lined up here. I notice that I have 3 thousandths and there's nothing above it. Well, that nothing is the same as saying that I have 0 thousandths. So I'm going to go ahead and write that 0 in just because it helps me to see the lineup. So I can go ahead and add 0 thousandths plus 3 thousandths is 3. 9 hundredths plus 0 hundredths is 9. 8 tenths plus 0 tenths is 8. Keep track of my decimal. And then 0 and 0 is 0. So my final answer is 893 thousandths. In question number 4, you're asked to simplify 7 minus 4 hundredths. Now this looks pretty tricky in that there's no decimal where that 7 is. But there's actually a decimal we don't bother to write. 7 is the same as 7 with a little decimal after it. So when I go ahead and write my problem, I'll write 7 decimal, and I can add as many zeros as I want afterwards. I'm going to go ahead and write the second number first. I have 0 and 4 hundredths. So that 4 goes in the hundredths position. So I'll give myself, in that first number, 0 tenths and 0 hundredths. And now I have a nice setup problem. I go to subtract. I have 0 hundredths and I want to subtract 4 hundredths. I don't have enough. So I go next door to the tenths. There's nothing there. So I'm going to have to go all the way to the ones and regroup. I'm going to take one of those ones, leaving me with 6. 1 1 is the same as 10 tenths. Now I still need hundredths, so I'm going to take one of those tenths. Now I have 9. 1 tenth is the same as 10 hundredths. So now I have 10 hundredths minus 4 hundredths is 6. 9 tenths minus 0 tenths is 9. Make sure to keep track of your decimal. And 6 ones minus 0 ones is going to give me 6. So your answer is 6 and 96 hundredths. Please pause your video and try problems 5 and 6. In part 3, question number 5, you're asked to solve 4 and 678 thousandths plus 99 hundredths. Now, the key to this problem is you want to make sure to line up your decimal points. By lining up your decimal points, the rest of the positions in your problem are going to line up. So this is addition. I can do a quick check. My ones have lined up, my tenths, my hundredths, and my thousandths. Now, in the first addend, I have an 8 in the thousandths position, and in the second one, I don't have anything. So I can go ahead and say having nothing is the same as having 0 thousandths. And that just makes it easy for me to see everything as I combine. 8 plus 0 is 8. 7 hundredths and 9 hundredths is going to give me 16 hundredths. So I'm going to write the 6 here. 10 hundredths is the same as 1 tenth. So I can go ahead and carry that 1. 1 tenth and 6 tenths is 7 tenths plus 9/10 is 16/10. So 16/10 is the same as 6/10, and 10/10 is the same as 1. So I can carry that 1. Now I'm going to make sure I line up my decimals. I have my regrouped 1. I have 4 ones. I have 0 ones. In total, you should have 5. So your answer to question number 5 is 5 and 668 thousandths. In question number 6, you're asked to simplify 231 and 8/10 minus 27 hundredths. Now the key to simplifying here is I'm going to line up my numbers and then I'm going to go ahead and subtract. So I write the first number, being careful to line up the decimal. And I'm subtracting 27 hundredths. By lining up the decimal, everything lines up. It's beautiful. I go to subtract, I go to the hundredths, and I notice that I have nothing written right above the 7. So having no hundredths is the same as having 0 hundredths. So I go ahead and write that down. 0 hundredths minus 7 hundredths. I don't have enough. So I'm going to go ahead to that 8/10 and I'm going to regroup taking one of the tenths because 1/10 is the same as 10 hundredths. 10 hundredths minus 7 hundredths gives me 3 hundredths. 7/10 minus 2/10 is 5/10. I have my decimal. 1 minus 0 is 1. 3 tens minus 0 tens is 3, and then 2 hundredths minus 0 hundredths is 2, giving me a final answer of 231 and 53 hundredths.
Hi learners, great job on part 3. Great job overall on decimal addition and subtraction. It's time for you to just try some practice problems to sharpen your skills. And I look forward to seeing you next time.